I guess I'll go over to the West.
Give us your winner.
Let me give you my winner. Two teams that I'm not going to pick as winners because they're big market teams. But it's just one of those things where you're across the room from someone and you just give them a little head nod.
A little honorable mention head nod.
Yeah, it's an honorable mention head nod. They're big market teams, so don't get anything else.
I'll give you one as well after you give us your two.
Okay.
Yeah.
The Lakers and Suns.
Yeah, you got to give them head nods.
They deserve head nods. The Suns, it was like, how are they going to build a bench? And after this, I was like, okay, so they built a bench.
Yeah. And then I look over at the East and I see green Boston across the room, and I give them a nice head nod.
Exactly.
Respect.
Nothing more, just a little tip of the cap.
They got the unicorn added to the roster.
Pingus is a Celtic.
And my goodness, is he good at basketball?
He is very good. He had maybe his best year of his career in Washington and Boston. And then, the L words, they stocked up. And they somehow were able to re-sign everyone they wanted to re-sign. And then you get Gabe Vincent on a 3-year deal. You bring back D'Lo, Reeves, and Hachimura, and it's like, oh my gosh, this team off the bench, they now have a better bench. They can stretch the floor more because really their only shooter was Malik Beasley last year. And obviously Austin Reeves is a good shooter too, but it was like off the bench, Malik Beasley's not going to play.
Yeah.
So yeah, but we're not going to say anything more about the L words other than, they do scare me. Death Star is looming essentially. But I will say, I don't necessarily love the contract, how big of contracts they were, but I actually do like the moves that the Houston Rockets made. And part of that is in order to be a winning culture and in order to progress as a franchise, as a winning franchise, you have to bring in players who have won before. Fred VanVleet has won a championship. Jeff Green has won a championship. Dillon Brooks, although he was the meme and it really fizzled out in that last year in Memphis, has been on very winning teams with the Grizzlies. Like I said, I don't necessarily know if I agree with how much they paid VanVleet and and Dillon Brooks. But you do need to make those moves because before, Houston was really just, hey, what kind of highlight reel mixtapes can we put up? And obviously with Ime Udoka, am I saying that right? Udoka?
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Who is one of the best coaches in the NBA. You need to bring in some defensive dogs, which is who Dillon Brooks is. JJ Redick even said, the facade that Brooks wasn't going to get paid was crazy because he's a great defender. His outside shooting was really bad at the end of the year. Great defender, can kind of shoot. And then, obviously, and they got Jacques Landau.
They did.
And so now you have a backup to Sengun. And so now you have some veterans among this very, very youthful team, which hopefully can help Houston take another step into being just trying to play for a play-in, I think, is a goal for the Rockets this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's no other way to segment this into into my losers.
Yeah.
I really think that the Rockets are the losers of free agency. I'm not sold with what they're doing, what they're building. I don't even like the personnel that they have necessarily in the locker room.
Sure.
And they added from the draft another guy that has questionable.
Cam Whitmore,
who he slipped in the draft because of possibly injuries. He has some looming injuries going on. But another reason that I saw was because his interviews
were bad.
And I know one or two things about bad interviews.
Yeah.
Oh,
you have bad one in the past?
I've interviewed people that have interviewed poorly. The job in college. Cam apparently has some bad interviews. And already on that roster, you have KPJ, you have Jalen Green, two guys that, there's been things out there recently with Jalen Green.
Yeah, he's had
kind
some
of a
videos.
goofball. And then KPJ just has been kind of a head case through his young career. And so you added a guy in the draft like that. And then in free agency, you turn around and you're throwing $80 million for 4 years to Dillon Brooks. And I don't need to remind you guys what we saw Dillon Brooks do in the past season.
Yeah, that was bad playoff series.
Awful.
It was bad playoff series.
And honestly, he's just a chippy guy. He's kind of a dirty player. And
you kind of need that. The Rockets didn't have any of that. And that's where I'll rebuttal you here. They also traded KJ Martin for some second-round picks. But you need some chippiness you need someone on your team that people don't like.
I don't think adding Dillon Brooks to a team where last season we saw Jabari Smith Jr. start fighting on the bench with some of the teammates. Like, we saw that happen in Houston last year, and you're adding more fuel to that fire.
I think you bring in, though, veteran leadership, which they didn't have. Like Jeff Green and Fred VanVleet, and you don't even have to talk about Dillon Brooks, but those two guys are highly regarded from their past teams.
They're more highly regarded.
And on top of that, I know Udoka in Boston, why he got fired.
Oh my gosh, yeah. They just don't care. They do not care.
No, but I do like their veterans that they brought in. They didn't have any. Who was their veteran before that? Did they have one?
Eric Gordon.
Yeah, and you and me actually watched some Rockets games last year. There were possessions where, because I had Eric Gordon on my fantasy team, and I love Eric Gordon. He didn't move on the court.
Oh, it's because they got freaking Jalen Green just shooting shots, shoots 50 shots a game.
Yeah.
To be honest, man, I'm not buying that Fred VanVleet and Jeff Green are going to come in and start like some yoga session and calm these young dudes down.
No, they won't, but I do like the signings a lot.
I don't see them as like just vets coming in with like Vince Carter type respect.
I think Jeff Green has way more respect than you realize. I think he's highly loved.
I think he's loved and has respect. But I don't see this dude coming in and changing this team's culture.
Yeah. Oh, it takes time. I think it'll take time, and that's why you probably see Christopher and KJ Martin traded. Which the KJ Martin trade, I know some people are like, was that even the right move? But you have to do something. You have to do something, and only time will tell.
Oh, you're still here. Well, while you're here, why don't you give us a like, subscribe, and follow us on Instagram at Small Ball Podcasts.